I'm Seth Grimes for anyone who's watching who doesn't know me already. And bear with me a second while I check some configuration stuff. So I assume M. Haggerty is Michael Haggerty, who had expressed an interest in joining the roundtable. I see you smiling there. If everyone's said, it's 4 o'clock. So I have 6 attendees other than the people who are panelists. None of those 6 is a regular roundtable member. So they will be welcome to enter questions via the Q&A and to use the chat function that should be available to you under Zoom. Let's see, I'm opening chat for myself so that I can see if anyone has typed in anything. So when you use the chat function, do note that you can chat to all panelists who are the members of the roundtable or everyone in the meeting so that everyone who's participating can see the chat. So to explain to people who are attending who are not part of the AI Roundtable, the Roundtable is a discussion group that is sponsored by TEDCO, which is the Maryland Technology Development Corporation. We've been meeting monthly for a year now. Our meetings have been, until last month, in person at the TEDCO office in Columbia. The purpose of the roundtable, well, we're focused on AI, but the purpose is to talk not just about AI technologies, but to talk also about business concerns, commercialization, market opportunities, and to effectively support one another as we try to bring products and services to market and to expand our markets for those of us who already have products and services in the market. So every one of us is grappling with the question how to move our business online, how to thrive in a world where business has been forced to be moved online. So that seemed like a good topic for the roundtable discussion for this month. And well, why not open it up to a broader audience of people who are presumably in Maryland, although not necessarily, but I did publicize this through the Maryland AI meetup and the Baltimore Tech meetup. So presumably others who are attending are Marylanders, but again, that doesn't particularly matter. So why not open up the discussion to anyone who chooses to attend? The people who are on as panelists are people who are members of the AI Roundtable. I'm going to invite 3 of them to speak for a few minutes to talk about what they are doing to move their own AI-related business online. Those 3, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves more extensively when you get on. But those 3 are Dr. Jim Fackler, whose company Rubicon Health is a startup that is looking at using AI for detection of sepsis, blood infections. Mohid Farazi, who has a company called Yaylo, which has an online meeting platform, and Shelly Blake-Plock, whose company does, among other things, distance learning, automated learning systems. So I'll ask each of them to speak in turn. As I said, invite them to introduce themselves further. I think we'll go in the order with Shelly first. And so I would invite you, as each person is talking about the concerns that they have relating to moving their business online and appealing to an audience that is more online now. I invite you to enter questions either using the Q&A or the chat function. I will just say once again, since a few people have joined since I started talking, I'm Seth Grimes. I started the Maryland AI meetup, but I also facilitate for TEDCO, the AI roundtable that meets monthly. So I'm going to turn it over to Shelly to speak a bit. Tell us about your business and yourself, however you wish, and what you're doing to move yourself online. I'm going to unmute you since you haven't done that yourself. So Shelly, take it away.
All right, just give me a thumbs up. You can all hear me?
Yeah, good.
Okay. So my name's Shelly Blake-Plock, co-founder and CEO of a Baltimore-based startup called Yet Analytics. What Yet actually does is we provide many of the data analytics and validation capabilities for distributed learning technologies, primarily in the Defense Department. So we don't do a lot of, to date, we don't do a lot of user-facing things in the sense of like being an ed tech or e-learning platform where you go and take courses or things like that. Rather, the place that we sit is in the databases and architecture that supports those sorts of systems. In general, with regards to what's going on right now, I am personally far less concerned as a business owner on the capabilities of our team to do work as I am on the capacity of our clients to sustain through this, where for the most part, we are a company. We have offices in downtown Baltimore, but we also have a flexible work policy and have supported work from where you are for the last several years. Typically, if there's work that needs to be done within the office, because it's called for by a particular contract, or there's just face-to-face work that needs to be done, we do that. Otherwise, it's very flexible in terms of where you're able to work from. We provide project management tools, coding environments and versioning software, communication platforms, all the things that I think most folks here working in software would expect. Where we're starting to see challenges now is in situations with customers for whom things like remote work are very novel concepts. And this doesn't so much include things like knowing what tools are out there to use. Generally, our customers understand, that whatever video conferencing platforms or whatever communication platforms there are that are out there. The problem, as we see it currently, comes in with how those technologies are being used. And I think that the recent news and questions about the integrity and security of a platform like Zoom, like we're using right now, and even changes that have happened on Zoom over the last few days, such as automated password requirements and things like this. They reflect sort of a need to respond to the way that now a whole lot of people who are using these technologies for day-to-day work have to deal, and how Zoom has to respond to that at scale to stay secure, to provide a good customer experience. Last thing that just comes to the top of mind is that all of this is hard. And I think that as people in the technology space, we're all too well aware that none of us, by virtue of existing as companies, necessarily will continue to exist as companies over whatever the haul of the situation is. And I think there's an implication there that could be just as much a threat to the continuity of business not just for us small tech companies, but on the people who are now using all of these services and require them in order to do their day-to-day work, whether that's in architecture or government or education or whatever. We as technologists tend to understand technical debt, and we understand that businesses go up and down. Once these things are now in the general mainstream, I would imagine that there are a few non-technical companies who are now involved in distance work who have contingency plans based on the continuity of the software as a service systems that they're now using and depending on for communications and important pieces of business. And I think that that's going to be something that really shakes out over the next 90 to 120 days. And we're definitely sort of watching that. So I'm a pessimist by nature. So there's some of my initial thoughts on this whole thing.
It's been interesting that you mentioned security concerns, Shelly, and I suggested to Jim when he speaks that he address some of the stuff as well. He's in a different field. But it's been interesting that aside from things like the Zoom deficiencies and some of the shortcuts that they took that are contrary to normal platform policy, for instance, installing web servers on Apple platforms of their users, that stuff has come to light, but largely the infrastructure, the connectivity has held up, including broadband to people's homes. The cloud services that are hosting all kinds of systems, despite the shift in load, all these things have held up. And you made me think about that a little bit. This has been a test that hasn't directly attacked the infrastructure, but it is one that we've survived all the same. The infrastructure has been sufficient to support our work.
I would suggest that remains to be seen because an increase in number of people using infrastructure is also an increase in vectors of attack on the infrastructure. And I don't think that we've necessarily seen that play out.
Is there anything you're planning for your own company? You mentioned that some of the tools that you have available for project management and so on. I'm guessing that you've already built in security measures to that, but is there any work that you're doing to try to anticipate some of the stresses that are potentially going to happen?
Typically for everything that we have an existing fallback. From a technical fear perspective, again, I'm less concerned about the ability of the technologies to hold up. Like I'm not particularly concerned about AWS East going down. But what I am concerned about is that the increased number of actors who are engaging in the various new communication points on the internet at the rate and the duration for which they are increases vectors of attack. And particularly in an environment where we really don't know how this is all going to play out. I think that's the big unknown.
Sorry, we'll go to Jim in a second, but one of the things that has arisen is this Zoom bombing, people who disrupt meetings that they weren't invited to. That's not such a risk for us right at this minute using in this online meeting, because we're using the Zoom webinar feature where only the panelists can show their screens and so on. But if you're just using the regular meeting feature, that is a risk there. Anyway, let's go to Jim, and why don't you introduce yourself and what you're doing and your own response for your everyday work and for your startup, if that does apply at all. Maybe it applies in terms of funding priorities But why don't you go ahead and speak?
So good to meet you guys. I'm Jim Fackler. My day job is pediatric intensive care at Hopkins in Baltimore. On the good news side is the kids aren't getting sick as the adults are. Actually, and just to do a complete digression on the COVID, we've got a 40-bed intensive care unit. We're currently in the process of putting 2 walls up to split it into 2 20-bed intensive care units because the kids aren't sick and the adults are. So we're going to convert pediatric beds to adult beds. And my regular life is a bit disrupted at the moment. From a startup perspective, my goal is to bring AI to the bedside, and I get it. It's me and 1,000 of my closest friends. On the list of advantages I think I've got is I'm senior enough on the physician side that I know what the workflows are, and the goal is to not just use AI for early detection or even use reinforcement learning on the back end to find best policies. The goal is really to implement it at the bedside. In this COVID day, I'm more or less on hold. I've been stuck in the funding, and I would describe myself as an embryonic startup at best. A little bit of grant funding, but no serious venture capital or capital of any sort beyond the grant support. And I need a boatload of data to prove that what I'm doing is effective. And that's my next step. And frankly, it's going to be on hold. Even finding money or going in to try and prove it's going to be on hold at least for the next 3 or 4 months. We're actually doing a reasonable job of coordinating the healthcare from distributed sites. We're running our morbidity and mortality conferences by Zoom. We're using the same features that you are, Seth, here, so we know who's in the room and who's not in the room. We're doing leadership meetings remotely, and at the moment, we're pushing even to monitor ventilators and video remotely. And so there's a lot of disruption that some of us have been pushing for 20 years, and one should never waste a pandemic to push some of these disruptive technologies. But from a straight up AI startup perspective, I'm on hold.
One of the things that has come out with the COVID crisis is the speed with which the scientific community is capable of responding to rapidly emerging threats. And we've seen that not only in medical communities where the international barriers often have evaporated a bit, and paywalls have come down and so on. We're also seeing that in the communities that I work in, people doing natural language processing, document analysis. I run some other meetups. I run a natural language processing meetup. And the April 27th program we're going to have is a couple of people from Allen AI, Paul Allen, the Microsoft co-founder, his organization in Seattle. They have something called Semantic Scholar, and they've cooperated with Microsoft and some variety of institutions to put up many thousands of scientific papers that relate to COVID research that people can then use natural language processing technologies and other forms of data mining to try to extract some leads. So it's interesting seeing those barriers come down a bit and the cooperation very rapidly accelerate. And I wonder if you're seeing that in your world, Jim, and whether AI is playing a role in this.
So the first part of the question was a simple one. The answer is yes. and the genome, and I'm not a geneticist by any stretch. The genome was sequenced in a matter of days based on international cooperation. The vaccines are currently underway. In the critical care space, one of the challenges, obviously well known, is the need for ventilators. And the students at MIT put together a hackathon a month or 5 weeks ago now to try and come up with a ventilator to be built as quickly and as cheaply as is possible. And they put together one over the course of three weeks, and it's basically a pair of plastic hands that squeezes a resuscitation bag, an ambu bag. They put the CAD drawings up on their website. They put as much documentation as college students can that would meet medical device documentation, and startup, or not a startup, a design and rapid prototyping shop out of New York picked it up, hired a couple of FDA consultants. The challenge is going to be in this particular epidemic, they're not going to make it to even if the FDA drops the barriers and lowers the bars, they're not going to make it to market fast enough to save anybody in New York, because one would hope New York is cresting, and after New York crests, we're going to be able to send the ventilators all over the place. But what it has done is it's pulled people out of the woodwork who have had good ideas, and I'm going to hope that some of these good ideas, this clapping hand thing is really kind of stupid. But not from an ICU perspective, but not completely stupid. And there could potentially be a use for it at the back of an ambulance and come a year from now. And so the straight answer is yes, there is a boatload of international cooperation, people just putting, again, CAD drawings up on the web because it's the right thing to do. AI in medicine isn't yet mature enough to respond fast enough to be useful. And I'm on the IRB at Hopkins, and the IRB is moving as fast as it can to make some of the data available. But what you'd really like to know is of all the people that were on ventilators in New York, with some degree of specificity, what they did for them and how they responded. And because the data is just not available, those answers are literally impossible to achieve. The pandemic 2025, we should be able to respond to, but not the 2020 pandemic.
Well, let me ask you one more question, and then we'll go to Mohid, which is, when we come out of this, when the crisis has abated, let's call it, it's going to be a while before we have a vaccine. Is your startup business going to be any different? The acceptance of the technology, the availability of data that you sorely need, the possibility of funding, are you expecting things to be different once we're starting to emerge from this?
I must confess, I have no idea. And we are burning through, we're printing money. And hospitals are so deep in the red. Frankly, I don't know, I just have no idea. And I think the culture will change. I think data availability culture will change. I've been railing in public that medical data needs to be viewed as a public good. And yes, everybody needs their privacy. And I do believe there are ways of protecting privacy with reasonable degrees of certainty and still making de-identified data sets into a public good. So I think the culture will change. I think data will become more available, but beyond that, I must confess I have no idea. I would hope we're not just going to go say, boy, am I glad that's over, and go back to the way things were 3 months ago. That would be a serious loss.
Sure. All right, let's move to a third member of the AI Roundtable, Mohid Farazi. Mohid has a platform, a meeting platform called Yaylo. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself further, talk about Yaylo, and maybe you're going to show us something. That'll be up to you to share your application, your screen, and so on. Mohid, take it away.
Thank you, Seth. Just making sure you guys can see the screen. All right. So thank you, Seth, for setting this up, and very, very interesting times these days. And welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, and happy to be here. Happy to share my thoughts on the current situation. Firstly, I'm a founder and CEO of Yaylo Incorporated. We are innovative meeting platform. We're helping businesses make their meetings more efficient, cost-effective, and easier to participate. And if you can, this is our website. There's a lot of information there. I encourage you to see the video as well. High level, I just want to give you a little bit of what we're doing, and then I'm going to jump into the current COVID crisis. The way we make meetings efficient is what I want to focus on is, meetings are, essential for business success, right? But the research says that there's a lot of inefficiency around that, and 15 to 20% of organizational time is spent in meetings, and at least 50% of time spent in meeting is unproductive, which eats up a lot of companies' revenue, and that's the problem we're solving. We're trying to operationalize a lot of the meeting efficiency techniques through our SaaS platform. What we do is that we create, for your 1 hour meeting, for example, we create a dedicated collaboration space, which we call the circle, which you are seeing on the screen right now, with just showing the meeting title. It has agenda items which are assigned, so everybody knows what they're supposed to work on. There are people there, there are agenda items there, there's details about the meetings, so files, and Zoom meetings and tags and all those information involved. So how is this efficient? So this collaboration space, the circle, is created and sent out to all the participants 3 days prior for their 1 hour meeting, so they start collaborating before the meeting, so they know exactly, it's clear what they're supposed to work on. They collaborate, maybe they finish an agenda item before the meeting actually even starts. So when you do collaboration before, the focus, the progress, a lot of that happens before the meeting, and then you go into your 1 hour meeting, you make the decisions. You can still use the platform, and when you come out of the meeting, you can still use the circle. So circle is a collaboration space which is dedicated for your one meeting, can be used for before, during, or after. Benefits, obviously, it brings the elasticity into the meeting. You can add or remove agenda items. They are assigned. You can add automation to it. So we're not just providing a collaboration space, we're providing AI and automation in that space. So trying to do things, repetitive things, let the platform do that for you. I want to talk a little bit about the discovery section. So let's just say this is a product design meeting. Our platform is going to make recommendations. Hey, these were the previous similar meetings. Maybe those are interested. Think about in terms of who made those who saw is a cybersecurity meeting happening, and who made those solutions. So platform can tell you these were the previous meetings that happened, and these were the people involved. These are the people involved with that skill set. So platform offers content and user recommendation. People come in, they start collaborating, they post comments. So you can click here, you can it will take you to a page, you can post comments. Everybody can post comments, and go on and so forth. So we provide a collaboration space for your 1 hour meeting. We attach like action items that to the agenda items that we have. So these are objectives which you refer to as agenda items. You can click on add action. Add action can be when this agenda item gets complete. Hey, Yaylo, can you send out an email to this participant about this thing? Hey, Yaylo, can you create another objective and assign it to these people? Hey, Yaylo, can you call these APIs when this objective is completed? So you can add as many actions as you want, 1 or 100, and that will Yaylo will execute them for you. So the context of meeting I want to point out is not just one meeting, right? So I visualize that you don't have a meeting, just one meeting. Yeah, typically you have series of meetings. You know, the information being contiguous is always a problem because the information is scattered over multiple tools, chats, emails, phone calls, or in-person chats, or so on and so forth. So we try to preserve the context who made those decisions. That preserves the knowledge, critical knowledge of the business who made those decisions, because it's when a seasoned person leaves, they take a lot of organizational knowledge. So our platform can be used to bring efficiency into the meeting and knowledge preservation, and utilize the AI and automation capabilities. We have seen the customers have benefited from our process that we're offering for meeting efficiency, the elasticity that we bring into the meeting. You are not time and place bound for your 1-hour meeting. So now we're changing gears from my platform to the current crisis. Typically, when you have a meeting, you have a 1 hour, everybody goes there, talks about 10 things, and then we move out, right? But the current situation is tricky, right? So the previous established communication channel and collaboration processes, we don't have them and the same way anymore. They were the tools that we were using, they were there, but also they were also helping. They were also like an add-on to an in-person meeting or in-person chats. But that is disrupted now. It's we don't have that in-person meeting. So I am seeing very different views. Some companies are just looking out for new collaboration tools. They were literally not prepared. Some companies do have collaboration tools, but they were mostly used internally. They're not used externally. And when you go external, then you have these conferencing solutions. So the infrastructure that scales across multiple companies, that is somewhat there, but it's never like it's scalable, or it's not there in the sense that everybody can use it, bring on the same platform. People, I'm also seeing that, companies who are interested in using the platform, they are slowing down because there's so much ruckus inside their platform just to handle the new crisis within their company. Their processes are being disrupted, and they just don't have, time. And, obviously, with the working parents, it gets much more difficult. They don't have a contiguous time frame to work on. So I feel, and I want to add on to Seth's original point. Tech did enable this, even this to happen. I mean, imagine that internet companies, internet technologies, or internet companies, several of them, Zoom or CDN content or cloud solutions or SaaS solutions, if they were so overburdened, or the pipes are so burdened and the infrastructure is not collaborative, that's very detrimental for the global economy as such. So that has not happened. The increase in cyber attacks is happening, and that will continue to happen. But that is very, very good thing about technology, that it's still enabling the businesses to continue to carry on. So that is a good thing. And this is a crisis situation. Everybody is still trying to learn. I am adopting my business according to that as well. Customers or prospects are not responding as much. They are interested, but they cannot adopt because they're still working things out in their own businesses. So if we're taking day by day basis, I mean, it's very tricky. Stock market being very shaky at this point. So, investment is either very slow or is on hold right now, is what I'm experiencing. Happy to take questions if anybody has any question.
Let me pose one to you, which is, have you learned anything? Have you picked up anything, seen anything, given the ways that people are collaborating now and their move from external use of collaboration tools from internal to external? Have you picked up things that you will now look into incorporating into your platform?
What I'm seeing is that people are feeling the absence of this centralized context preserving specifically for meetings. That is lacking right now, right? So you do have collaboration tools and you can use that, but again, like 2-3 weeks down the road, nobody knows why it happened. You can search it. It's a text-based search, and it's still difficult. And people not being able to commit that full 1 hour or back-to-back meetings, they are feeling the pain around that. To have a asynchronous component to their synchronous meetings that are happening. And these tools like chatting channels like Slack, and they're good and they work very well, but they are very real-time conversational platform, not a scaled 3-day, conversation, elastic conversation. So there are tools and you can use them to handle the situation right now, but the long term there are still gaps that companies are feeling, that particularly in meetings, they cannot commit to a time. How can I collaborate? Email chain gets long, chat thread gets very long, back and forth emailing it, context doesn't get preserved. So I'm hearing a lot of that they do want to have collaboration improvement over there.
I didn't say anything about much about my own business. One of the things that I do is organize conferences. I was supposed to have a conference Monday last week in New York, an in-person conference, the Emotion AI conference. I'm now actually going to do it May 5th online. I'd love to have people attend, of course, but I've been looking for the right tools to use. I'm probably going to use Zoom, but I'm looking into some other possibilities. But there's also a question to what extent can and should I replicate or reproduce or replace the essentially the in-person, not exactly collaboration, the conversation possibilities of an in-person conference. An in-person conference, you can have breakout sessions, roundtables, ad hoc conversations. You can just walk up to people and introduce yourself and start talking for 30 seconds or for 10 minutes if you want. How can we replace, or I should say, how can we replicate those kind of functions, maybe do them better, not necessarily do them the same on an online platform? We do have a concept of rooms, but I'm concerned that you don't get the same kind of clues and signals that you get in an in-person event that, hey, the main program is restarting, let's get out of this room and go sit back in the conference hall. Of course, I'm also worried about distractions and diversions and all of that kind of stuff. When people are online, surely people who are attending now have been checking their email and doing whatever. It's just what we do. And you can do that in person too. If you have a cell phone, you can be checking your email. So having an asynchronous platform like Yaylo is in a way, it's very suited to today's world, where you can pick up a conversation, drop it, come back to a different plenary type of session, whatever. So I wonder if you were sort of fortuitously positioned for an evolving collaboration, a style that the evolution has been forced by the current events. I'm just kind of hypothesizing here. I'm curious about your reaction. Were you well positioned for an evolution that was happening and has been accelerated by the current events?
Thank you for that question, Seth, and it's a very good question. So first I want to share some of the research findings, right? So, in-person meetings are here to stay. In-person collaboration is here to stay, and it is needed for business success. But there are a lot of inefficiencies around that, right? 65% of the senior managers cannot complete their day's work because they have so many meetings, and then there's a dysfunctional component to meetings, in-person meetings, that people go into the meetings, but then they're doing their emails and then they're doing their other. So there's a statistic that in 30 minutes about 2 emails are sent out in a 30 minutes meeting. So you are there but you're not over there. So so there's a little bit of that, but the answer to that is that there should be, what we find most beneficial is that the in-person combined with a asynchronous solution helps the best way to design or increase the ROI for your in-person meeting or your in-person collaboration, is to clearly identify who's supposed to do what is the plan, step 1, step 2, step 3. That's clearly identified. People know what they do, and they have one centralized place. The knowledge gets preserved. That increases the efficiency of the meeting. That increases the efficiency of the of the collaboration. I'm giving you one example. In our research, we also found that having an agenda item just as a statement, report, financial report 2019, is not the best way to have an agenda item. It's best to pose an agenda item as a question. So we are working on the technology to, when the user comes and puts a question, puts a agenda item, we try to detect whether it's a question or not and tell them that, hey, maybe you want to phrase that as a question. Question is a different cognitive exercise for the user. How they think and approach that is a goal set. You're going towards that. You want to answer that. I want to address also the evolving piece that you're talking about. It's we're a startup, Seth. So I can't tell you, man. We, from academia to consulting companies to tech companies to Fortune 5. It's a very different people are not prepared. They don't understand. It's a very, very, evolving the product or using for conferencing or using for other things. All of that is there, but at the same time, Yaylo is definitely a good candidate for that, a good starting candidate for those type of collaborations. The need of the customers, or there's a little bit of educational as well. They need to change or think a little bit differently about now. They have to, because we don't have the luxury of meeting in person. So Yaylo works in that respect a lot. It can help and increase the efficiency for a lot of the meeting collaborations that are happening, and even in conferencing too. You're 100% right. When Yaylo, I just want to add one more point. It gives you a bigger mental space to think, right? So you're not collaborating for that 1 hour and you have 10 agenda items to solve. You have 3 days or 5 days or 6 days or 10 days is elastic. To work on those, right? So you can go deeper, longer focus. So the collaboration quality, the contribution quality also increases. Seth, you're on mute.
I've been using the space bar, so that is the secret trick. If you press the space bar, you unmute yourself for the duration, and I forgot to do it this time. So I'm going to open this up for others to talk. Jeremy or Michael, if you want to say anything, please go ahead. If you do, just introduce yourself very briefly when you start talking. And then we have a number of attendees who are viewing this. If you want to say something, we don't have all that many people, so we could invite other people who are attending to speak and not just send in messages. So send me a note and I will promote you to a panelist if you want to say something, if you're not one of the panelists already. But Michael or Jeremy, you have anything you want to say, or Jim or Shelly, you could speak as well. Go ahead.
Jeremy, would you like first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to speak a little bit about rapid transformation and change that happens. How technology can facilitate, but also like a little bit about how to prepare. And I know that's a really broad topic, but I want to compress it to about 2 minutes.
Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. My name is Michael Haggerty. For about 13 years, between 2004 and 2016, I was CEO and founder of Trellon LLC. Trellon was interesting. Worked with nonprofits, NGOs, and academic organizations. In a lot of cases to really just improve their digital strategy. What we used artificial intelligence for was fundraising, volunteer identification. A whole host of other features aimed towards maximizing the, let's just say the way nonprofits do their business. Okay, so really what we were focused on was just supercharging. Okay, in 2003 when I started the company, just to paint a little bit of a picture, I'd been working residential campaign, doing the digital strategy for a guy named Wes Clark, who I was really impressed with. He didn't win. If you know, if you're living in DC and if I just win.
Michael, hold on a second.
Oh,
You don't have a second audio stream going there, do you, by chance? Because we're getting a bit of feedback. In other words, a sort of repetition type of thing.
Not that I know of. It might be a gain issue. Is this any better? If you move the microphone closer? I didn't hear you, Seth. Okay, if this is a problem, I wonder if
You're
headphones have a
understandable. It just
microphone.
is a sort of a echo, 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 you know, that type of thing. Keep going.
Okay. Well, you know what it is my ego is so sometimes it booms and echoes. Take a step back. What happens when your guy doesn't win is you leave town. It just feels bad being surrounded by the opposition. To Las Vegas, which is where I founded Trellon, and at the time, the nearest person who could do what I needed them to do was 200 miles away. And so in a pre-Skype, pre-Basecamp, pre-any collaboration tool environment, I had to get up and running with me like right away. It's just as soon as I left, I suddenly had 3 clients. 3 clients turned to 6 in 6 months, and I needed to find a way to keep going with what was there. Cell phones existed. We made great use of those. We had a free conference called which actually existed then as well, which we were able to use for interfacing with our clients. But what I used to tell my employees, and which really kind of became the center of the company, is this idea that your discipline is business success. And what I mean there was I crafted simple policies that we could follow that could be executed 100% of the time. And I also used checklists to hold people accountable and validate what they're doing on a weekly basis. This gave me sort of the organizational management approach that was necessary. Also gave us accountability, because in a virtual environment, the number one thing that I found, I had over 200 different employees over the years. People just get off track. You have a meeting, everybody's focused, rolled in, and then suddenly, I don't know, the dryer's done. And somebody they go, they take care of whatever the task was. And now, for whatever reason, they've forgotten what they learned in the last meeting. So there were a lot of issues like that running Tron. I sold it in 2016 and moved to found a nanotech company. And what we do right now, although I'm in the process of winding it down, I have a different business idea I'm going to do. We would use AI to spectra to figure out the similarities between different chemical assays in order to understand, is there something between 2 assays that results one another? Can it be stirred? Can it be fit in some other model of thing we have?
So what are your thoughts on the current situation, the evolution of your work, the change in your prospects, or how you see yourself coming out on the when this thing dies down? What are your thoughts in this area?
Well, that's a great question. Fundraising is probably the biggest thing. Part of the reason that I decided to move on from my current company, at least do a major pivot, is just the capital requires, with working with NAC, and at the same time having hard AI requirements. That's a big ball of wax. You need to change your focus a little bit when you get to a certain state. As far as this goes specifically, though, what I would say is the lessons that I learned with Trellon apply really to everything. It's just that a lot of people are having to learn this on a shotgun approach. I think, which I think is fair to say. For 13 years, I ran meetings with people who included some VIP and progressive pilots. From my computer, usually without video. We were very successful. We managed to take a lot of money. But I think everything came down to, for me, like when we started being successful, not just like a lifestyle company, was when we defined our KPIs in terms of team KPIs, company KPIs, sector KPIs. And focused and achieved on those, and staying laser focused on this, and making sure that we communicated about them throughout the company. We were able to influence some of that discipline that leads to success. So I think that's what I have to offer. I said 2 minutes, maybe I had 5 minutes, but it wasn't boring.
Jeremy, you have anything you want to share?
Sure. So I'm Jeremy Rorodi. I'm CEO of a company called Seri Technologies, and we are working on a data science platform for non-data scientists. That way, people like Jim, who really know the the medical workflow very well, can integrate machine learning or AI, whether it be chatbots, image recognition, regression classification, stuff like that, into kind of what they do on a daily basis or into their business just a little bit easier. So currently, we are almost done with the alpha version, and then we're going through and we're putting up roadmap for 18 months, which will eventually include chatbots, reinforcement learning, basically a whole suite of machine learning techniques. And basically for us, I don't know, we were never really an in-person company. We're a very small startup. There's only a couple of us. And even, kind of a couple months before this started, we kind of started meeting in person once a week. So this hasn't really affected us so much. And in fact, my team members have had more time on their hands because they have full-time jobs. They're still working, which is good. They're programmers, engineers. So, but even then, they have had more kind of time. The one thing I do want to kind of reiterate that Michael touched on was kind of this aspect of like discipline. So one thing I think is very interesting is that I've seen on Facebook and on LinkedIn that there are companies integrating tools with Zoom and Skype that will actually take a picture of you to make sure you're there. And that's very interesting to me because me and my team meet, once a week, and they have no problem. We have no problem getting our work done, without me having to baby them and be like, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Like, you need to get this done. One thing that, goes to help that, there are a lot of other tools to use. So like we use Slack pretty much every day. We're talking on Slack. There's project management software that's free that's called ClickUp. That's pretty good. We just started using Jira, which is part of the Atlassian suite. That's like really awesome. It's a little bit better than what like ClickUp is, at least for the free tier. You can do like roadmaps. You can do all this really cool stuff. So I don't want to take too much time. I want to let some of the guests speak.
I'll make a remark that I've learned that the Zoom platform will issue a report on the meetings that I host, and that will include attention. I believe there's a way, even within the platform while the meeting is going on, to see whether Zoom is the application that's on top. In other words, if I wanted to see whether one of the attendees has a web browser open on top of Zoom, then I should be able to see that. And the move to online platforms is really going to expose records of our behavior, new data that's generated that wasn't collected necessarily before. It's going to make it available, and that's going to create business opportunities and all of that kind of stuff. And also it will expose new ethical dilemmas and needs for disclosure and all of that kind of stuff. That's part of, I suppose, the things that Mohid would be concerned with as a platform developer, but that we should all be concerned with as platform users, especially since we, as people who work in the AI domain, understand the power of the software to crunch all of this stuff and the types of data collection that are going on out there. Anyway, Jared asked to speak a little bit. I don't remember where, but I think I've encountered you. Maybe it was through the Maryland Tech Council. But in any case, why don't you go ahead? You're on mute, so you'll need to unmute yourself with your space bar, or I could do it for you if necessary.
Hi, so I'm Jared Jascott. I'm a Baltimore-based immigration lawyer, and I have a law firm here, but I also have a chatbot company that's similar to Jim. I'm trying to get chatbots and AI next to lawyers while they're doing their work in the form of expert systems. But actually, our primary product we sell to other law firms right now is a white label chatbot that actually talks to their customers for them, and it helps bring them into the level of scheduling a consult. So that bot is available right now on Facebook, and it uses NLP, and we're sort of slowly bringing more and more machine learning into it with the help of a local firm called Miner and Kosh, which I actually know thanks to you, Seth. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, they've been a good sponsor of the Maryland AI meetup, so it's been great to have them supporting that. But yeah, that's interesting about the chatbot within Facebook. I used one that there's a chatbot. It's just kind of interesting. There's a chatbot meetup that is centered in Israel and Tel Aviv, and I attended a program they did last week. That was interesting also because they used Discord for back channel discussions. Discord is used by gamers. This is the first time I've ever heard Discord. My son uses it, to talk to the other gamers while you're doing your games. And they used it for the meetup as the communications channel. And sometimes those are workarounds because platforms like Zoom get very expensive the more people you have participate. So you end up doing things like stream the meeting to YouTube for free access or to Facebook. In any case, I did try out a Facebook chatbot, and it was kind of interesting because I kind of detest that platform. It's the sort of the chic thing to do if you're to detest Facebook and all of that, but we all use it all the same. So how is this situation affecting your business, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, lawyers are probably the most conservative profession, if certainly at least in the top 3 in terms of just how we think and act. And so, for a lot of these firms, getting forced to go virtual has been just brutal. And a lot of people that I talk to in my sales of the bots, I've just seen their law firms have just stopped entirely. My firm, actually, we had been working so much on technology that we were able to leap into virtual really quickly. But what we've seen actually is that our customers, many Central American immigrants, they're not tech savvy. So if your business jumps into the cloud really quickly, but your customers aren't ready for that, trying to figure out how to get them to interact with you and be able to deal with that is a totally different problem. So for instance, we've had to use the video conferencing app called Whereby because it's the only app that doesn't require a download of an app to be able to video conference with. And to ask a customer to make an app download onto their phone that they don't already have, it's like a little extra friction. We also, a lot of our customers pay cash at the law firm. So, how do you do cash transactions when you're in the cloud it's a pretty big issue.
It's a concern in person now. There are people who don't want to businesses that don't want to handle cash because that they think might be a vector for transmission of the novel coronavirus. And
I think it is
a big concern for people like me. Just the cash economy and people who are unbanked is the term. So situations like the current one can, said this before in other contexts, can really accelerate trends and concerns and really surface concerns that exist already because they become concerns for a much wider audience.
Yeah. On the sales of the app side, I mean, I've seen in the attorney forums that I'm a member of, a lot of attorneys getting really pissed, like, why are these vendors coming at me? Why are they trying to sell me software right now? How could they possibly talk to me about trying to grow my business when I'm like basically seeing all my sales and deposits go to zero? So I feel I'm lucky that I'm, as an attorney, that I'm able to kind of like hear those comments, because then over here on my like app sales side, I'm like, all right, we need to really change our messaging around that. So we decided to sort of, we opened a 2-month free trial. We're kind of doing a pilot. So we have to give the product away for free right now to try to get users to come on and feel like we're working with them. I think in terms of bot and automation and the tech, echoing sort of what Mohammed said, is that people, it's a great moment for us to have them think, whoa, this new technology is perfect right now. Like the time has come. But in terms of right now, the time has not come for them to want to pay you for it.
Well, you can look at this as creating opportunity by putting the Roundtable online. That opened up the possibility of opening up the discussion to a larger audience of people who might sit in, or in the case of Jared, he raised his hand figuratively and we called on him. For my meetups, my natural language processing meetups, formerly they were in New York and in Washington, D.C. The last in-person meetup I had a couple of speakers from Facebook AI Research in New York City. Our attendance was 86, if I remember right. And the first online meetup that we did 2 weeks ago, the peak attendance on Zoom was 156, and we no longer have geographic boundaries. But yeah, that brings up the possibility, well, you know, we all have to go online to an increasing extent, and the people who are there already, or the people who can move most rapidly online, are the ones who are going to have competitive advantage. So anyway, let's see, you know, just open up the floor. If anyone wants to pick up, don't wait for me to call on you. Go ahead. Mohid, you're muted.
Yeah, I was just going to make a point that you're right, Seth, that yes, the crisis is there, but there is, you know, there's from my particular perspective of you know, meetings, because meetings have you know, there's the practices and the cultures are sort of deep embedded in an organization. So to break that, to change that, is a very different you know, conversation versus now, then which the crisis is triggering the change, not me necessarily identifying, hey, you should change it because 1, 2, and 3 is the benefit. There, you have to, like, right now the conventional process has changed, but at the same time, this is also in Yaylo's case, this is also an opportunity for them to make their meetings efficient. Look at the meetings differently. Don't look at it as a binary decision. I can go to it or I cannot. It's an elastic decision, right? So you can make a contribution even if you don't make it to the meeting. You can still collaborate because you do have a space. So we changed the whole concept around that. And there is an opportunity for organizations to make their meetings more efficient, preserve that knowledge. And this is a good time for them to look at it. Any new technology, obviously, there's a you know, new concept, a new process has a pushback. So there's education involved in there. So we try to help you know, cross that bridge with the customer together. We educate them, we help them understand the trade-offs, and you know, and help their unique you know, situation and unique problems. Yeah.
Other comments?
Yeah, I was going to pick a fight with Jared on whether medicine or lawyers were the most obnoxiously conservative, but it's probably a non-productive fight. You know, when I pick up on these meetings like this is, you know, obviously I suspect I'm the only doc on the line, but a lot of the challenges that we've got there are analogies, and so I actually could see where a chatbot would fit into my workflow, as well as a, you know, even in an intensive care unit. And you know, I could see the data analytics in the background, and then a therapeutic change on a ventilator, for instance, and the chatbot coming at you and said, I don't think I would do that. And then you could, well, and then you know, and then the chatbot, and then you'd say, why not? And then you would ask the chatbot to respond. And if the chatbot got confused, you know, then, you know, you still do what you think is the right thing to do. But it would be more a real-time interaction with the data. And then the other big challenge we've got is we deal with ad hoc teams all the time. You know, if you could train with 6 people, or, you know, pick a baseball team. I have my Cubs t-shirt on. If you can't see, there's the Cubs win poster in the background, Tom. But you know, you know who the second baseman is, and you know he he's got a sprained right foot, and he isn't going to be able to move as fast. So you put a shift on, and we don't know any of that as we do these ad hoc teams. And you wonder, if you opened one of your meetings with, you know, the timeline and the deliverables and where you're supposed to be next week along the top, if somehow there's a way of mixing these things in, which is, again, I'll stop. This is why I find these discussions fun.
Okay.
What I was hoping to learn from Jared is what was number 3 occupation. I guessed medicine or be a doctor, but what was the number 3?
Well, there's maybe
Most conservative.
bankers.
Bankers? Oh, those guys are a bunch of jerks. They do stupid stuff all the time.
Government contracting officers are up there.
Yeah, all right.
Contracting officers. Any other nominations?
Accountants are pretty conservative. Yeah. Well, I think bankers are the worst, and PPP has really brought their reputation down.
Well, but it's the bankers, from my perspective, and you guys live with these folks, and from my perspective, bankers are the ones who put the ATM machines in. And I get it. Algorithm-driven trading may or may not be a good thing, but nonetheless, they picked up on AI long before the rest of the world did. So let me not defend the bankers. That's enough.
But an ATM allows your bank to charge you $3 to withdraw money without, and they can't charge you $3 to withdraw money if you go up to the teller window. It allows them to handle these things, at any time of day or night. And so much of automation is driven by the desire to save money, to expand the business possibilities, and in ways that humans can't support. Humans don't scale. Humans are too expensive, whatever. So, they're conservative except when it comes to making money. And that's true of a lot of industries. Maybe not medicine, but maybe the healthcare industry is more interested in making money. I don't know.
Well, it would be nice to be able to scale the humans in healthcare. That is currently our rate limiting step. And frankly, the more you put in chatbots and online meetings and workflows, again, I'm hoping not to waste this pandemic.
It's the regulatory approval process. It makes it so hard to scale. I wanted to build just scan small particles in the air. And we were looking at probably years of investment prior to being able to even do some of the field tests. So things do need to change. Your points about medical privacy really resonated with me. I would hope to see some differences in HIPAA. One company that is really encouraging to me right now is Palantir, and Palantir Foundry is a product they've got going with DC. We're going to see within about 3 months is apps on our phone that lets you know if you've been around somebody who was diagnosed as a good patient. All going to be anonymized. It's not going to tell you who that person is, but I think it's going to catch the tail of this wave. It's going to catch wave 2 of what's coming. And that's when we start to scale, is when we are able to be a lot more agile with that data and to start putting big data to work against, let's say, big public health outcomes.
Who's developing that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. That's Palantir out of Palo Alto.
Yeah, Palantir is one of these companies that has a well-cultivated veil of mystery or fog surrounding them, and it's hard for most of us on the outside to understand how real they are. Still, they have huge valuation and are very popular in intelligence, military communities, and so on. And then there's a huge suspicion that they're a little better than the Cambridge Analyticas out there in terms of the data abuses that they do. Still, people like successful companies, and Palantir is one of them.
Peter Thiel was asked if Palantir was a cover operation for the CIA, and he responded that the CIA is a cover operation for Palantir.
Peter Thiel is very insightful, and it's worth it to listen to what he has to say, even if you don't agree with politics. I would personally take Palantir over Google any day. And that's,
Well, do you want to give your money to the CIA or the NSA?
try the CCP when it comes to Google. Around 2012, they were "Don't be evil" from their vision statement. That was the canary, at least as far as I'm concerned. But you know, I don't want to condemn company. I try not to be too judgmental. I think we get into frame of mind where people politics confuse what's going to be there. With Palantir, they have a very real capability to let us know who is infected, who is not, and to have a bottom line effect on health outcomes. One of the challenges that we discussed during this meeting here today is the idea that we need to collect a lot of information. We need to synthesize it. We need to analyze it. That's what big data and AI is for. And I don't know. I look at COVID-19 like it's not even a health problem, an information problem. How do we get it all together? How do we put it in where we can deal with it? And I think they are one of the few companies positioned to deal with it. So I'm really excited in a big-brained way about what's coming over the next 3 months. We are going to see some fireworks.
You know, I think Jim made this remark earlier. COVID-19, I will contradict or put it a little bit differently, Michael. COVID-19 is a behavior problem.
Yeah. It's anything but a health. I know this will offend the doctors in the room, but we don't know how to treat it without a lot more data. You can't medicine without knowing the remedy. I think try to conceptualize it, but I know that we need a lot more information, and the two major innovations we've had over the last decade are semiconductors and telecommunications. We should need position to destroy this thing. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but I get really excited when I hear about the various initiatives that are out there. So I've been watching the CDC really closely, especially in the pyramid end, like what PSA putting out, what's going out in the Federal Register, and it looks to me like Palantir is going to be the big gun that we bring to bear.
Well, maybe this is a discussion that we could continue on a different occasion. Let me ask, we'll wrap up now, I think. This is our normal type of length, especially for an online program. We don't want to drag it on. Let me just ask you all whether you have any closing remarks that you'd want to make regarding the current situation, how you're going to be coming out of it, what you're doing to adapt right now, or anything else that relates to the conversation today. Anyone, just take me up on it. Go ahead.
Well, the species that has enjoyed this the most are the dogs. And I'm blown away that mine hasn't barked in my face, but he will any minute now.
Yeah. Mohid, do you want to say anything to finish up?
Sure. I think we as humanity has passed similar challenges before, so we will pass this as well, and we'll pass it together. And I try to offer as much as help to not just in business community, but my own personal neighborhood community as well, as much as I personally can, staying within the safety limits, obviously. So just, we're not alone, we're in this together type of feeling. I want to offer that. And that's how I look at it. I think we can, with technology, with, collectiveness, we will surpass this. And, wishing everybody safe and remain safe and healthy.
Thank you. Jeremy, Jared, Michael, Shelly? Okay, well.
Thanks again, Seth. Awesome meeting.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is our first good Cattle meeting. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah.
I think this turned out great. So.
All right, good. Well, you know, we'll plan on doing something similar in a month. If people have topics or themes that they want to discuss or specific things that you even want to present, then you can let me know and we can see about getting that scheduled. So let me just wish you all continued good health. You look to be in good health right now. This is a difficult time, and you know, it's pretty cool that we could move this online and have a discussion and open it up to others to participate, to view at least. So thanks to everyone who attended and to you all who are participants.
Thanks, Seth.
Everyone, take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Yeah, have a good one.